Low carb diets are all the trend right now. From keto to carnivore, everybody's doing it and claiming that they're getting amazing results. But the truth is, low carb diets aren't for everyone. And in fact, it may do you more harm than good. So in this video, I'm going to break down the exact signs that you should look for in your body to determine whether or not you would benefit from a low carb diet. So you know exactly how you should be eating. And stick around to the end because I'll also share with you a whole list of healthy carbs that you should eat and can eat every single day. So let's go and dive in. But before we do, I'm Dr. Nick Zyrowski. And as always, thanks for hanging out with me in today's video. It's always a pleasure bringing you the best knowledge in natural health. Let's look at the first sign that would determine whether or not you would benefit from a low carb diet, because that's what we're trying to figure out here. Who needs this? Is it you? Well, the first big sign is going to be if you have insulin resistance or prediabetes. Now, this can be a little bit tricky because unless you've had your blood tested as of recently, you probably don't have the answer to this. And the truth is there's hundreds of thousands of people walking around with prediabetes and insulin resistance and don't even know it, right? So here's the thing. If you're walking around and you have a lot of fat around your belly, this is a good sign that you have insulin resistance occurring in your body. So what happens is as you start to reduce carbohydrate intake, your blood sugar starts to go lower along with your insulin levels. And remember, if we want to actually start burning fat on our body and we want to start healing the insulin receptor, we need those insulin levels to start going lower. So by reducing carbohydrates, this will highly benefit you. And this will also prevent the progression to type 2 diabetes, which is another big sign that you would benefit from a low carb diet. Now, low carb eating is going to be an effective way to lower blood markers that would prove that you have type 2 diabetes, such as your hemoglobin A1C or your blood glucose markers. So a low carb diet, and let me tell you this too, combined with some fasting, intermittent fasting like 16 and 8 or a 24-hour fast once a week is going to be a great way to heal the cell receptor to make your body more responsive to insulin, therefore healing you from type 2 diabetes is something that you can heal very easily naturally. And many people will see a reduction or a total elimination in meds if you're on meds for type 2 diabetes simply by going low carb and throwing in some other key factors, which I'll talk about in just a minute, that will not only help you lose weight, but also help you reverse type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance. Now, here's another big sign. If you're somebody who is suffering from metabolic syndrome, this is going to be a huge sign that you would benefit from going low carb. Well, what is metabolic syndrome? This is going to be like high triglycerides, low HDLs, high blood pressure, elevated blood glucose, and all the different lab markers that your doctor will use in order to put you on meds. So the truth is that if you have metabolic syndrome, going low carb and going sugar-free is going to be a key to creating balance across the board with all of these different markers associated with metabolic syndrome. And you're going to find that just following a low carb diet will be a key factor in fighting this. Now, I want to put some context to this conversation because you're probably thinking to yourself, what is low carb? And what does that mean? How many grams of carbohydrates can I eat a day if I go low carb? Well, there's some interesting information here. One is that the average American is consuming between 250 and 350 grams of carbohydrates per day, okay? This is a lot of carbohydrates. According to the CDC and the USDA dietary surveys, what they found is that about 40 to 50% of daily calories in the US are actually coming from carbohydrates. That's a lot of carbs. I mean, half of your diet coming from carbs, but it gets worse because when you look at the carbs that are being consumed, they're refined carbs, they're added sugars, and they're coming from things like white bread, white pasta, soda, pastries, and a lot of junk foods rather than good whole food sources. And I'll share with you at the end of this video good whole food sources to healthy carbohydrates, the ones that you actually should be eating, right? You're thinking, well, a carb is a piece of white bread or a carb is a donut. No, not necessarily. Those are going to be man-made carbohydrates. However, when you start looking at ones found in nature, they're very different. And in fact, they have some health benefits to them. So this is where it gets a little confusing because we don't need to go zero carb, right? We don't have to go super low carb. And I'll talk about where you should be in just a second. However, following a diet with good whole food sources of carbs is beneficial. Another big sign that you can look for to determine whether or not you'd benefit from following a low carb diet is if you are looking to lose weight. Let me further that point. Or if you have what's called weight loss resistance. You try to lose weight and you can't lose it. Like no matter what you do, you try to lose weight and it just won't come off the body. Well, this is an issue that many people suffer with. So carbohydrate restriction will help regulate your hormones, okay? Specifically your hunger hormones. There's two hunger hormones. One is called leptin, which tells you when to stop eating, and one is called ghrelin. Now, these two hormones are going to be a huge factor. And if you start regulating them, you start controlling your appetite a little bit better, and you start controlling the calorie consumption that you have on a day-to-day basis much better. And the reason for this is because imagine if you have something like leptin resistance, the hormone that tells you when you're full. And as a result of that, you start eating and you don't stop eating because you're not hearing that sign from your brain saying, we're full, stop eating. Or maybe you have a problem with the hormone ghrelin and it's just telling you to eat all the time. Eat, eat, eat. You need more food, right? This is a big problem that can really make it difficult to control your food consumption. So if you go low carb, it'll help balance these hormones. Now, if you're somebody who's tried just regular calorie restriction and not succeeded, well, this is probably going to be a big key to you. Go low carb so that you can actually regulate these hormones and get better results. Now, when we talked about insulin resistance in diabetes, one of the things I had told you is that I was going to get to a point in a minute. And now that we're on weight loss, I want to cover that point. That point is that if you're looking for further support, one of the things that we use in natural healthcare is berberine. This specifically berberine that has a 5 times more bioavailability than regular berberine that works excellent for helping you not only regulate your blood sugar, but regulate your appetite and also help you start losing weight. So if you want to learn more about berberine and the amazing benefits that it has, I'll put a link in the description below. Many people are turning to all of these different weight loss meds out there anymore that have a lot of negative side effects to them. However, let's stick to the natural way, and the natural way is going to be utilizing diet like we're talking about right now, and also berberine in order to control your weight, your appetite, your blood sugar, and everything in between. So I'll put a link in the description below for this berberine ER, which I find works so good and I use in my clinic every day. Now, another big sign that would indicate you need to follow a low carb diet would be is if you have fatty liver, okay? So if you're falling into the insulin resistance category or the pre-diabetes or even the type 2 diabetes, you probably have fatty liver. If you can look down and see a lot of fat around your waist, you probably have fatty liver. Now, of course, you could go to the doctor's office and you could get a fiber scan. You could test for this sort of thing, but it's probably there. Once again, following a low carb diet, using some berberine ER, these are all going to help you reverse that fatty liver. Totally reversible, and it's important to reverse because if you don't reverse fatty liver, eventually it can turn into more severe liver problems like liver cirrhosis. I recently had a patient I worked with and she's never drank alcohol in her life, and she's like, I don't understand why I have liver cirrhosis. Well, here's your answer. Fatty liver for a very long time, over the course of many decades, can lead to liver cirrhosis. Now, another big sign is if you're a female suffering from PCOS, a lot of times, especially young girls are suffering with this. And when you're suffering from polycystic ovarian syndrome, one of the big things that you actually need to do is get your blood sugar under control. So you would certainly benefit from a low carb diet here. Now, I want to give you some comparisons, all right? You're probably still wondering, what is a low carb diet and what does that look like? Well, the average American consumes between 250 and 350 grams of carbohydrates per day from low quality sources, okay? We're gonna talk about high quality sources of carbs in just a second. I'm gonna give you the whole list. However, how many carbs would be involved in, let's say, a ketogenic diet, right? Now, if you're following a ketogenic diet, this is going to have a strict regimen for carb consumption. It's gonna be between 20 and 50 grams of carbs per day. If you're somebody who's pre-diabetic, if you're type 2 diabetic, or your weight loss resistance, you're probably going to follow a low carb diet between 20 and 50 grams per day in order to start getting results, okay? Now, if you're somebody who's a healthier individual and you're looking to just change up your lifestyle, follow a low carb diet, but continue to eat healthy, what would that look like for carbohydrate consumption? That would look like 50 to 130 grams of carbohydrates per day. Now, me personally, a healthier individual, I exercise every day, I'm gonna be around that 130 grams of carbohydrates per day, but I'm getting my carbohydrates from quality sources. So you might say to yourself, well, that doesn't sound that hard to follow. And the truth is, it really isn't. You have to understand that most Americans are eating 5 to 10 times more carbs than what is considered low carb. So if you really do the math on that and you start looking at what you can follow in order to be healthy, it's really not that difficult. And if you're just getting into this, start with the low carb diet. A low carb diet is 50 to 130 grams of carbohydrates per day, healthy carbs. And then the ketogenic diet, which is an option too, but a little bit more strict, a little bit harder. And when you're following the ketogenic diet, you're specifically trying to get your body into the state of ketosis and you're eating only 20 to 50 grams of carbs per day. Now let's look at a few more signs that you would benefit from a low carb diet, and then we'll talk about healthy carbs that you should eat every day. One of the signs you should look out for is if you're having a neurological disorder. So neurological disorders will actually benefit greatly from following a low carb diet, specifically the ketogenic diet, because of the ketones being very healing to the nervous system. So if you have something like epilepsy where you're having seizures, or even if you have a issue like Alzheimer's or a condition like dementia, the ketogenic diet is very, very beneficial. The low carb diet is very beneficial and very healing. Now, anyone who's struggling with energy crashes is going to benefit greatly from a low carb diet. So if you find yourself going throughout the day and having these huge highs and lows of energy, especially in the afternoon you're crashing, a low carb diet will be a good answer for you to stabilize your energy because you're stabilizing your blood sugar. And as a result of that, stabilizing hormones, stabilizing your energy source throughout the day. Now, another big thing to look out for is if you're dealing with any type of inflammatory condition, and I know that that's a little bit of a wide net there when it comes to health problems because almost everything starts with inflammation. But the truth is, if you have an inflammatory problem in your body, you would benefit greatly from a low carb diet, especially if you have an arthritis that you're dealing with or something along those lines. So here's the thing, is that when it comes to low carb, it's important to eat healthy carbs. And if you're eating a lot of carbs right now and you really want to make the switch, I would encourage you to start this way, right? We want to make small steps in the right direction. Just simply start by switching out your carbs. Don't even concern yourself with how many carbs you're eating. Just start switching out your carbs from low quality carbs to healthy ones, all right? The low quality carbs that most people are eating today is your sodas, your pastas, your candies, your pastries, your bagels, all of those things, right? Healthy carbs look like this. Now here's a few vegetables that are going to be low carb but nutrient dense, okay? This includes broccoli, spinach, kale, Brussels sprouts, zucchini, bell peppers, and asparagus. All great for you. These are going to be more on the low carb list. Now, let's look at some high carb vegetables that are also nutrient dense, right? And here's the key here, is they're nutrient dense. If you go eat a bunch of sugar, that's a lot of carbs. However, the fact is there's no nutrients in it, right? However, if we're eating this stuff right here, you're going to get not only fewer carbs that are going to fill you up, but they're going to have a nutritional benefit to you. So look at these starchy carbs, like once again, higher carb, nutrient dense. Sweet potatoes, butternut squash, carrots, beets, and parsnips. These are all great versions of healthy carbs. Now, some others, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, is fruit, okay? If you're somebody who's craving candy throughout the day or sweets, turn to fruit. Blueberries, strawberries, green apples. These are all great sources of low carb fruits that are going to have low glycemic indexes along with a ton of nutrients. Anything in the berry category and even grapefruits fall into this category as well. So these are going to be ways that you can start increasing your carbohydrate intake, all while eating healthy ones. And then from there, to start focusing on these low carb meals, start increasing your protein intake and your fat intake. And this is the key. If you want to lose weight and heal your body, more protein, more healthy fats, less carbs. It really is that simple. So now that you have the information, go out and use it. I'm Dr. Nick Zyrowski, and if you love this video, I know you'll love this one next.